For a while, I was living outside of Centerpoint on some property I have there just because I had sewer and water connections for my house. And out there, unless the moon is strong, it gets dark. And you appreciate the difference between light and darkness. Now, for several months, I moved my house here to the parish, and I've been living in San Antonio. And it never gets dark. And you don't recognize the difference between light and darkness. And not all light is the same, right? Sometimes the light is just from the back wall of Arandas, or it's the lights of the passing 18-wheelers on the service road or the cars on Petrenko. Like not all light is the same, but there's a constant light. I close my shades, but there's a constant glow through the windows. It's hard to tell if it's night or dark. And I was thinking as I read the gospel today, the man born blind who came to see, that there's something privileged about that process from darkness to light, something that made it easier for him to recognize the gift of God and God who gave him the gift. It was easier for him to see with eyes of faith because he came to see with his eyes. And sometimes it's not the darkness that blinds us. Sometimes it's the light that blinds us. And the Pharisees struggled with that as they walked through this story, not having the privilege of being blind, not having the privilege of need, not having opened their hearts to receive the love that God offered them. They stayed blinded, not by their darkness, but by the light. And for us, maybe, as we hear this story again of the Father's love poured out on this man blind from birth, and the dialogue that grows between him and Jesus from this encounter, and his ultimate response, which is to worship the Christ, the Messiah, with faith, with eyes of faith, having seen the light of the world, not just as the light, the security lights from Arandas, but the light of salvation and love. And for us, invited into these encounters, and the hardest part sometimes is to recognize the God who encounters us, because so often he doesn't come looking like God. And invited into this encounter with the Lord, like the blind man, and into a dialogue that would lead to faith and a recognition of our need, right, of our thirst last week, of our darkness this week, of our death and suffering and struggle next week as Lazarus is brought out of the tomb. That in recognizing our need and allowing ourselves to be loved by God, we would find in that encounter, in that love, something new that would bring us to faith that is new. And to find ourselves invited with the man born blind to recognize the Lord, to receive God's gift in the encounters of our life, and then to worship the God who gives us these gifts. This is the kind of the most intense part of our Lenten journey now, as we begin the great stories of purification, as we are invited to recognize Christ as living water, to recognize Christ in our encounters as the light of the world, to not be blinded by the darkness or by the lights that shine all around us, but to recognize Christ as our light, to recognize him as a resurrection and life, and so prepare our hearts to celebrate with him the Paschal mysteries.